Hello there and welcome. Today we are talking about measuring up the metric system versus the imperial system. So a couple of things that you're going to want to need to know about. First of all, why are there two? So whenever you look at a ruler, there's always two sets of numbers. There's the big numbers, that's of course inches, and then there's the small numbers, which of course are centimeters. It says inches right there and it says cm right there. Trust me, it does, for centimeters. So why are there those two sizes on rulers? Well, there are two measuring systems that we currently use here in the world. So the imperial system is the system that was left over from England. The metric system actually makes a little bit more sense, and as an engineer, we tend to use that one a little bit more. But it's important that you know the difference between the two. So, to give you a little bit of history, the imperial system originated from, we stole it from England, they stole it from the Romans. So, the Romans had a pretty simple system. They would use some pretty consistent things, like for example, the barley corns. So 3 barley corns laid end to end would equal 1 inch. This kind of became where they got the inch from. I've heard some rumors about it being the length of the king's nose or whatever. But just fun fact, a grown man's thumb is about that same width. So you can see I actually have a pretty good size there from the 4 to the 3 there. That is 1 inch is the width of my thumb. So it's just kind of one of those cool things. So 3 barley corns equaled an inch. So originally the Romans were using that. That was fun. So later on that evolved over time, and eventually England decided that they needed to standardize something. They needed to have a set measurement, so they actually created what they called the standard yard, and that became what was 3 feet. So that divided into 3 became 1 foot. That divided into 12 became the inch. So again, that standardized those measurements. However, and this all came from the Weights and Measurement Act of 1824. When you think about it, that's not that long ago. I mean, you know, so anyway. So once we had a standard sizes and things, we started using those. So again, this led to our system of measurement. There is a little bit of a difference between the United States version of it and the British Empire's version of it, but I won't bore you with the details there. Basically, you know that an inch is the kind of the smallest unit there. Then we go to a full foot again. So when you're measuring your ruler, you have 1 inch here, then you have 1 foot, then you have 1 yard, which is 3 of these feet together, and then of course a mile. So just so you guys know, that's kind of a quick and dirty rundown of the measurement system that we use here in America. All right, so a couple of things. When you're looking at your ruler, there's going to be some important stuff you're going to want to note. For example, on your ruler, there is, we use fractions when we're dividing up the ruler. So if you look up here, you can kind of see between the 1 and the 2 there. So obviously the 1 is going to be 1 inch. It's important to note something important here. Let me see if I can get back to just me. So when you are looking at your ruler, you're going to notice that there we go. So when you're looking at the ruler, you're going to notice that the 0 does not start on the edge of the ruler. The reason why they do this is so that when you're using your ruler, if this edge gets dinged up, your inch won't get shorter. So that first inch, so the very important thing to know, whenever you're measuring something, you always want to start with that 0 line right there. That is the 0 marker, okay? So don't put the edge of the ruler, don't measure from this edge over, because then your measurement will be off considerably. And that distance is often very different on different rulers, all right? So again, whenever you're measuring, you don't measure from the edge of the ruler, you measure from the 0 point, that first line right there, that first line. That's very important. Make sure you guys are doing that, especially in the exercise that you're going to do in the next video. All right. So it's also important to know that about halfway through, you're going to have the 1/2 inch. So again, if you look, the next longest line is going to be the 1/2 inch, and it's halfway between the 2 numbered marks. All right. Then if you cut that in half, that next longest line will be 1/4 of an inch. The next longest line will be 1/8 of an inch. And then some rulers even go up to 1/16 of an inch, which would be the shortest little mark there. And again, if you count those out, it's pretty easy. There's 2 halves to make up a whole. There's 4 quarters to make up a whole. There's 8 eighths to make up a whole. And of course, there's 16 sixteenths to make up a whole. I know that when I was learning fractions, that became very, very difficult. It's also important that you know the difference between the fractions written out as a fraction, like for example, the 1 divided by 2, that's 1/2, over the 0.5, which is the exact same measurement, it's just being written in decimal form. So again, if you're ever thinking about it, think about money. All right, so 25 cents is a quarter, so that's 1/4 of the inch. All right, so 75 cents would be 3/4 of an inch. All right, so think about those. When we start talking about the metric side, it's a whole lot easier. The way it works out is the smallest size there is going to be 1 millimeter. So when you get to 10 millimeters, you have 1 centimeter. And when you get to 100 centimeters, you have 1 meter. And 1 meter is just about 3 feet roughly. All right. So that is a very quick and dirty explanation about measurements. So it's going to be very important that you guys understand how to measure things before you move on to the next lesson. So here in a moment, you're going to be measuring out from your piece of paper. So I think you're pretty much good to go. So let's go ahead and move you on to the next video.